Time now for news from the NCA Money Desk. Rapiwa Madzena joining us. And Rapiwa, one of South Africa's big pharmaceutical companies is rallying after announcing the sale of one of its businesses. Why is this significant?
We're about to find out, Sally. So very interesting news we saw of the Pharmaceutical Group Aspen. Those shares were up close to 9% in early afternoon trade and went on to finish the day at around 5% in the green. So this comes after announcing the sale of its European thrombosis business to US group Mylan for an equivalent of 12 billion rand. The group will also be announcing its annual results on Thursday, and it's one of the few companies that will report healthy profits in the COVID-19 battered economy. Stephen Saad, who is the CEO of Aspen, is joining me now. Stephen, many thanks for your time this evening. So Aspen had a 33 billion net debt at the end of December. Presumably, the European sale will take some of that debt.
Yes, we started our debt at 53 billion 18 months ago. So yes, it was 30 odd, as you said. And if you've got 12 or 13 billion here, it will make 50%. You see, probably 2/3 of our debt has gone.
Right. You also said last month that you expected profits to increase by up to 11% as clinics sought to manage the COVID-19 with your products. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. On the transaction itself or on the earnings?
The earnings.
And the growth in earnings.
Yes, the growth in earnings.
Yes. Okay, well, look, earnings we announced on Thursday, so that will be then. But certainly what we have seen with COVID has been quite interesting. We've seen in some of our core markets, say like South Africa, we've seen the chronic medications are relatively, those are medicines you take every day, have been relatively stable. But because of all the boundaries and viral infections and masks and sterility, we've seen big drops in things like cold and flu. We've had almost no winter season in terms of anti-infectives. So, it's been, and yet in places like Europe, we've had a very big run on our anesthetic products during the peak of COVID in April. So it's been a little bit of everything, but I would think that we probably had it as a net negative from a business perspective. Simply less people are getting sick.
Yeah. Stephen, are job cuts still on the cards at Aspen Pharmacare's production facilities in the Eastern Cape?
Yes, they are. We are in a discussion, so it's early to have those talks. We've got to make sure we're a global manufacturer, and we've got to make sure that we are at the top of our game against global competitors. As soon as we slip, we lose business to China, to India. We've really got to make sure, and we've invested quite heavily in machinery, and we've invested heavily in our people across the ends. And there's a big facility that we're opening shortly around in our sterile business. So there's a bit of a mix of, sites we're trying to get more efficient and big sites that we intend opening shortly.
Right, and then
particularly our sterile sites. The sterile sites are important for South Africa, important for the world. These are sites that make anesthetics, thrombosis, and can make vaccines, for example.
Right. And speaking of vaccines, there are some concerns that if a vaccine for COVID-19 is found, Africa will be at the back of the queue. Now, Aspen was represented at a recent dialogue discussing this. Would we really have to wait longer than others to test of the world?
From what I've seen and read, is no different to anyone else's in terms of who gets vaccines first, and there are clearly some countries that have bought up vaccines and from manufacturers. And what I will tell you is that if Aspen are involved in anything to do with vaccines, we would certainly be insisting that Africa got it back.
Right, and then finally, Stephen, let's talk about the GDP figures we saw today, obviously having an impact on the commercial healthcare sector. Just your thoughts, really, and the outlook, given the numbers that we saw come out today.
Yeah, it's when you look at it, I know they said 51%, but you've got to divide it by 4 for the 9%. That's very terrible in any language, but no better or worse than most of the other countries in the world. It doesn't give you any solace. And so much depends on what we do as a country from now. We've got issues that we need to address. you need to address it. It's no different to Aspen. You've got to have an ability to repay it back. You've got to say what assets work, what assets don't work for us, and to be able to manage our costs effectively from here. Because South Africa we've had a difficult situation, but even before COVID. But if we address issues effectively, transparently, and actually go and execute, we've got incredible growth opportunities. I talk as probably Aspen is maybe South Africa's most global company in terms of number of countries we trade. And in South Africa, if we get it right, it's probably one of the most expensive.
Brilliant. Stephen Saad, many thanks for your time this evening. That's the CEO of Aspen, the audio failing us a little bit there in the end, but interesting insights of the company's developments there.